Good morning. Welcome to Common Sense with Tom Schmitz. I am Tom Schmitz. This is our first episode of Common Sense with Tom Schmitz. We are coming to you from the CEP Business Incubator at the power plant here in Ocala, Florida. I want to tell you right away that the opinions and views expressed in this show belong to this guy and the guest of this show only. In no way are the CEP, the City of Ocala, or Marion County responsible for any of the opinions expressed here on this show at any time. On today's show, we're going to talk about wages with the first of our first responders here in Marion County. And we're going to do that with County Commissioner Michelle Stone, newly elected County Commissioner Michelle Stone. I might say she has been gracious enough to join us on today's show. If you see something a little strange in the background, that is a mural that is in progress, done by Rebecca. I'm spacing on her last name right now, but Rebecca Harvick. She is a local talented artist. When it gets done, it'll be a mural of the Marion Theater, the gazebo, the water tower, the Ocala sign, maybe even a golf hole, some horse fences and everything. Just be something that represents Ocala. This show is Common Sense with Tom Schmitz. And when I say common sense, it doesn't take a political view one way or the other. I am a member of the Republican Party of Marion County, but that doesn't mean I always agree with the Republican Party of Marion County. As some of you know from my days of hosting with Buddy Martin, the voice of Ocala on WOCA radio, this is a video version or an extension of that show that I used to do at WOCA. And with that in mind, now I'd like to welcome in County Commissioner Michelle Stone. She is newly seated County Commissioner Michelle Stone. Michelle, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tom, and good morning to your audience. It's an honor to be with you this morning, and especially to talk about this very important topic. I'm very impressed with the show and the comings together of the mural. It's going to be beautiful, and I know your viewers will enjoy this show. And thank you for bringing it back to the air. I do think it's important for our community to have this format.
Thank you so much. And truth be told, all honesty, you played an integral part in helping me get this up and running. You've been my encourager. You've been a mentor of sorts and have helped me quite a bit in keeping this endeavor alive, and I appreciate you for that.
It's my honor, and again, I'm here to serve the community, and I think this format is good for our community.
Well,
Thank you.
It's a great place. The CEP in Marion County, Ocala, Marion County, they do a great job. They've allowed me, I had to go through the process, but they've allowed me now to open up Common Sense Network, which is the business that Common Sense with Tom Schmitz is being filmed under, and I'm able to monetize that and make a pretty decent living.
Good.
That brings me to this issue.
I want everybody to be able to make a good living in our community.
Well, let me give you some numbers, and I'll just start with this. A McDonald's worker in our community starts at $8.25 an hour. Mm-hmm. A cook at a prominent Ocala restaurant, and I won't tell you the prominent Ocala restaurant, they asked me not to say, but he did tell me the wages. It is one that is well known in this area by a guy who does a lot for the community. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
$11 an hour a cook starts out there. Okay. Garbage collector for advanced disposal, $10 an hour to start out. That's what they start out. And then I requested from the fire department or the county some records of what county people make. And when I pulled those up here, of course, my computer decides this morning not to work. That's how it always is. When I pull those up, I see first responders make, is it $8.28 for a single, if they have single EMT certification?
Single EMT certification, I got $8.98.
$8.98. Mm-hmm. Okay, $8.98. Yeah, here it is, $8.98. Single certified paramedic, $10.98.
Correct.
A dual certified EMT firefighter, $9.83, and a dual certified paramedic firefighter, $11.83.
That's correct.
So because maybe I'm reading this wrong. So if you're just a single certified firefighter or EMT, not both, just think you're either a firefighter or an EMT. You're making, what's 98 cents? That's 73 cents more to start than a McDonald's worker makes?
Well, We have the numbers in front of us, Tom. So that would be accurate. If your numbers are correct, we know these numbers from the county are correct.
These are for the county. Now, that leads to a problem. Do we have in place, or is there a plan going to be put in place to increase those wages, one, and two, we've also been known as kind of a training ground for the rest of the state, which is a serious concern when you have the rank and file that are leaving in the numbers that have left over the last 2 or 3 years. One is there a plan, or is there something that you're trying to execute to implement to lift the wages? And two, is there also some serious conversations going on about how do you stop first responders and firefighters from leaving?
Well, the two answers to those two questions are yes and yes. Yes, I am going to run. I ran on making sure that we improve this. And so, yes, I will be helping lead conversations with our county commissioners that we address this issue. And yes, we will have a plan in place. And I've already started by talking with our fire chief, Chief Nevels, as well as Deputy Chief Banton, as well as Monier Boynes, who is our county administrator. We've met a couple of hours thus far simply to understand our history, understand that they recognize there is a problem as well, and they do. And now the issue becomes how to start addressing it and putting a plan in place. There will be conversations that'll take place with HR. There is a contract that'll be negotiated with the union on behalf of our rank and file, basically, and those negotiations will begin in January. A lot of history went into where did we get and how did we get to this issue, and I confess I got a little frustrated in the conversation because the history began back in 2009. And so I had to kind of just chill my jets a little bit and listen to some history on how did we get here. I mean, we know it's an issue, so how did we allow this to continue? And back in 2009, before our recession, we were beginning to feel some of that issue. Some of those negotiations were, how do we help ourselves in today's environment? And that today environment back then was to freeze, at that point it was called a technical ladder. And so that's why today, back in 2009, that same plan is still in today. There is no technical ladder. And, you know, again, when I was campaigning, I recognized that to be an issue, and it's amazing that we've allowed this to go on for so long.
Well, we looked at workshop budgets. You and I did this on the radio on the Voice of Ocala show that we used to have. You and I looked at budgets and workshop budgets where people say that they don't want taxes raised, but it's come to a critical point now where there's going to have to be an increase of some sort, and the workshop proved this out in 2017, 2018, 2019, where they jumped considerably. Because this is, for lack of a better term, and you weren't commissioner when this happened. Jeff Gold was not commissioner when this happened. David Moore, I don't believe, was commissioner when it first started to happen, nor was Kathy Bryant or Carl Zalek, I believe, when it all started to happen in 2009. I
think they came maybe in 10.
Right after all. But that group with Earl Arnett and Stan McLean, who had been there the whole time, that group, for lack of a better term, and I've said this numerous times, they kicked the can down the road. They just kept kicking the can down the road. Well, we've reached a dead end now, haven't we?
You are correct. We had done such a good job in history of building an outstanding fire and rescue group. Truly, we had good longevity, we had a good infrastructure in place, and so the need was not necessarily looked at what's our need going to be in the future. It was looked at, hey, this is an area that we can freeze for the time being and turn our attention to other areas within the county. And I think history now has proven you can't freeze things, because things are going to continue to change and evolve, and we must plan for the future. And that future was basically, we just want to survive. And so I think the leaders at that time felt that they were making decisions. In their mind, they thought that that was the right thing to do. And quite frankly, the former fire chief made that recommendation, from what I was told, to freeze some of these things. And so as a result, based on the competencies that were all smooshed together, they made these decisions. But now they never did go back and address it appropriately as we've gone into the future. And so therefore our reserves have been dwindled because they were operating at a deficit. And so eating away the reserves, not preparing for hiring. And back in '09 and the years just past that, there was such longevity that they were hiring people in, but they weren't hiring to the capacity level that they felt like they needed. Again, I'm going to use the term back then, the technical ladder. So they felt it wasn't important to put that into their contract, which allowed our newbies to grow and progress with their values of dollars. Now there are some stipends that they also get.
Yeah, they do get some stipends. Explain those to us when you say stipends.
Well, if they take on additional responsibilities, they get a few extra bucks here and there.
Kind of like a school teacher who coaches. They get their money for teaching, but they get a little stipend if they take on another responsibility of coaching.
That is correct. To the point of the EMTs and the paramedics, if they take and they're assigned to a transport unit, which an ambulance, then they'll get an additional $2 an hour. And that stays with them as long as they're assigned to that transport. Sometimes they don't want to stay assigned to a transport. They want to go back and just be assigned to a fire station only and respond to those particular calls versus the emergencies of a transport driver or a transport unit, excuse me. So they get that option. So again, that's a little bit more money, but let's face it, when you're starting out in life, and a lot of these are people coming right out of fire college, you want to be able to know that you've got some progressive opportunities in the future. That's where the training ground comes in. Yeah, we give them all this opportunity to train because they respond to, last year alone, fire and EMS calls alone were nearly almost 75,000 calls.
Wow, 75,000. So they get the training.
They get
on the job training.
And I asked, so, what's the cost of, I've heard it's about $6,000. Well, it's just under just over 8,000, I should say, to fit them with their equipment, their suit. But we know it costs us a lot more than that. Whenever you're losing the experience level, it's a lot more value than you can put on just their fire suit and whatever other equipment they take with them.
Well, common sense says.
Common sense
says, as much as I would like these to say, right out of fire college are good firefighters. And don't get me wrong, I think right out of fire college does a great job, and they're very competent firefighters and EMTs coming out of fire college. But somebody who's been on the job 5, 6, 8, 10 years with the knowledge because of real life experiences at fires, at auto accidents, at situations where EMT, first responders, and firefighters need to be, that experience, Tom Schmitz, this guy, I want somebody with 10 years experience. No fault to the one with 10 months experience, but give me the 10 years experience every time.
Absolutely, and pair these up together.
So they train.
Exactly. So because I mean, let's face it, you don't know what you're going to face when you get to an emergency scene. And some of the issues that our firefighters and EMTs assess and then have to make on-the-spot judgment calls just like that, their value to me is much greater than what we're starting them at.
And it begs the question, like you went to college, you got degrees, you do banking, everything that. but nothing prepared you for when you walked into the bank and actually found out what the inner workings were and everything. You had to learn.
That's right.
You could have all the schooling, but you have to learn on the job at every job, and this is a life or death job.
It definitely is a life or death job that they're responding where a life is in the balance. There's no doubt. In most cases.
And you can make more money cooking than you can in a life or death situation job.
You know, and we talk about it being a job. I don't know that I would even classify it. It is a job, but it's really it's a calling. It's a calling with a burning, I want to help society. I want to be that superhero. In my eyes, they're heroes.
And every civil servant job, to some extent, is that same way.
Sure.
And while we're talking about first responders and firefighters, we could talk about, you know, and I know some people have said, well, the money's not spent properly in the police, in the sheriff's department and everything, and I get that, but we still could do some things with the EMTs, the sheriff, our first responders all around, from law enforcement through the firefighters. My question is, and this is just my opinion, Michelle does not, I'll let her respond to this, but it has been said, I've said it numerous times, that the last commission that was seated, Stan McLean, Kathy Bryant, Carl Zalek, David Moore, and Earl Arnett, that I felt, my opinion was, I felt that they continued this freeze more as a election campaign situation, so they could say, I didn't raise any taxes, you didn't see me raise any taxes. I thought that that was more what they used, and you openly said we need to address this subject, and there may be some expenditures that have to be done, and yet you still won.
I think our population recognizes that you can only do so much with what you have, and if you want a level of service, you got to pay for it. I promise I'm going to look for those opportunities where, you know, we can change our spending and reallocate it appropriately. But let's face it, you know, we've lived off of the same budget, mills, while population has increased. And yeah, we've gotten a little bit more every single time, but we've got to determine at what level do we have to really change those millage rates.
So let me see if I get this right. The county has continued to increase in population.
Absolutely.
The millage rate has stayed even, so the reserves have dwindled.
Reserves are dwindling. On top of that, you know, population rising, millage rate didn't really even stay the same. At the last budget hearing, there was a decrease. The millage, and I was reminded of this, we didn't keep the millage rate at 3.90, we decreased it to 3.99 or 3.98, excuse me, but it changed by 0.01,
Right.
which was basically just under $150,000. And they did that based on the public had passed the sales tax. And so that alone, the sales tax passing tells us people are willing to invest in our community, in our infrastructure, and quite frankly, I think they're willing to invest in valuable assets, which are our employees. I mean, that's our greatest asset, are these employees. And those that save our lives and save our buildings, our biggest assets, our homes and our buildings, when they respond to fires, I think we need to value them, and it needs to look that way.
I just think that when I look at the pay that they're making at the start, and I know that a starting firefighter or a starting EMT, and if they have dual, they make a little more. I just think that it has been something that the union probably shoulders some of the blame for. The county commission, I think, kicking the can down the road, shoulders some blame for. My question is, we know it's a problem. We know we need to look at it. I know you're committed. I know you're committed to looking at it. But have you had conversations with anyone from the union or representatives there where they are committed with working to find a solution to this as well?
I have, and I wouldn't say that they're on the record conversations because I've not sat down with union representatives, and I must confess, there's a lot of nuances that go with working with a union, and especially now as an elected official. So I've been careful to avoid any improprieties along those lines. But enough conversation, and with prior union representatives that serve in the county as well, that is helping educate me on how this process is going to work. And I will help carry a flag to make sure that we're paying them appropriately. And what, I don't think we're ever going to be able to say it's appropriate, but it's got to be better. And most especially, they have to have their competency matrix, which back then was the technical ladder, those competence matrix that allow newly certified EMTs and paramedics and firefighters to progress in their career, so they want to stay here.
So they can see a reason to stay here.
Exactly.
That there is movement
Yeah.
up the corporate, for lack of a better term, up the ladder to
Exactly.
success, so that they're not just stagnant at one pay rate.
Absolutely, and I've even shared with Chief Nevels and our Deputy Chief Benton, listen, every time you see those front line, you high five them, please. Thank them for what they're doing. Let them know that we care about them, they're valued, and you're excited about what the future holds for their benefit.
So then let me ask you this question as we're wrapping up here. There was mention of that if some things didn't happen, that the fire budget would run at a deficit in 2018. I know in 2018 the workshop shows the fire department budget would be, I think it's almost $1 million deficit. And there was some discussion that you may have to look at closing some things and everything.
I knew you were going to say
So,
that.
with that being said, are you committed to working towards solutions that do not include closing firehouses?
I'm committed to make sure that we offer the appropriate services in our community. Here's what I've asked as of even Friday afternoon. I want to see the calls by fire station. What did they respond to? How many calls were made? Don't give me a capacity level. On an average, we have capacity to take more, because we know from out in the forest to 200, those capacities are much different. And I think we're overstressed in some areas and understressed in others, and we need to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I don't want to close any fire stations. I can't wholeheartedly tell you I would be committed till I really look at those numbers and see what would be the alternative response for a fire station if it were to close. And I don't even want to say that I'm looking to make closures. I just want to see the numbers. But one call a day justifies having a fire station that we've already got in place to stay in place.
I agree 100%. Michelle, thank you so much for helping me get this off the ground. Thank you so much for coming in today and having a frank conversation about this. And I wish you all the best as a county commissioner and much success on your meetings. I know it's a tough job. I get a little tough on the county commissioner sometimes, but I've sat in some of those meetings. I know it can get, you have some characters you come up against all the time in those meetings.
I'm very committed, though, to look at this, and I love meeting new characters every day. And I look forward to helping bring solutions back to address this issue and help us improve.
Michelle Stone, County Commissioner for Marion County. So common sense, folks, tells us that these wages, the $8.98 for a single certified firefighter EMT, single certified paramedic $10.98, dual certified EMT or firefighter $9.83, and a dual certified paramedic and firefighter, that's too low of a wage if you want to keep people here. And then with no prospect of moving up the ladder, why would you stay? You get your training on the job and then you go, because you can make more money for the city of Ocala, you can make more money in Alachua County, city of Gainesville, Levy County. Gilchrist County pays about the same, but there are other options because there's move-up potential in some of those places. So why are we losing a lot of firefighters to Hillsborough County? I personally know 3 people that left to go to Hillsborough County last year that were great firefighters, and by the way, commute every day to Hillsborough County because they're on 24, off 48, so they commute to do their 24 hours in Hillsborough County. They still live here, but they take their money and their paycheck and all to Hillsborough County. Common sense says we need to do something to address that. Well, that brings to a close the first Common Sense of my career. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow's guest will be Melissa Townsend. We're going to talk about art in our community and the need for more art and how it helps in bringing new revenue into the community and bringing new people into the community. We'll do that tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Common Sense with Tom Schmitz. Once again, I want to thank my guest, Michelle Stone, for joining me. And of course, behind the scenes, you can't see him, but without him, none of this would happen. Executive producer Brian Morgan. For Michelle Stone and for Brian Morgan, I'm Tom Schmitz. Have a great morning, everyone.